Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Let's Talk UNRWA. And of course, UNRWA is the United Nations Reliefs and Works Agency for Palestine refugees. I'm Mara Cronenfeld. I'm Executive Director of UNRWA USA, the US chapter of UNRWA, and I will be your host for this hour, as usual. I hope everyone listening from the United States had a wonderful Thanksgiving break with their families. A quick refresher on our program. Let's Talk UNRWA is a monthly speaker series live stream on our channels. Our goal is to provide all of you with an insider view of UNRWA's work. It is also a unique opportunity for you to hear directly from UNRWA staff who are primarily refugees themselves. And it's a particularly special day today, November 29th, which is a very important day for all those who support Palestine, and it's International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People. A short history lesson for the day. In 1977, the United Nations General Assembly called for the annual observance of the 29th of November as the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian People, also known as IDOS or IDOS. Since then, every year on the 29th of November, the member states of the UN and like-minded supporters voice their solidarity with the Palestinian people in multiple ways. Some do it through art, some do it through music, through film, and others do it by donating to organizations like ours. At UNRWA USA, we show our solidarity to Palestinian refugees every day through the work that we do. But today, we want to shed particular light on the situation of Palestine refugees in Lebanon. Lebanon, as many of you know, is currently facing an unprecedented economic crisis. This is what the World Bank is calling one of the most severe crises since the mid-19th century. Because of the massive devaluation of the local currency, all of those in Lebanon are facing inflation, massive inflation, and extremely limited purchasing power. And this crisis is in fact putting the health, the safety, and the education of whole populations at risk. The most vulnerable communities in the Lebanese population include refugees and include Palestine refugees. And these communities risk further marginalization and deprivation without external support like that we receive from so many of our generous donors in the United States. The hardship is particularly acute in communities that were already underprivileged and where unemployment and poverty have increased over the last several years. And this is certainly the case for Palestine refugees in Lebanon. Today, I'm so pleased that we'll be hearing directly about the situation on the ground from Huda Samra, UNRWA Lebanon Office's Public Information and Communications Advisor. Nice to see you today, Huda.
Nice to see you.
Huda will tell us about the harrowing situation in Lebanon and the work UNRWA is doing for Palestine refugees living there. And also, we will both talk to you about how you can show your solidarity on International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. So thank you, Huda, for your time and for being with us today. And thank you so much for your service with UNRWA. And maybe we'll just start by you telling us a little bit about your background and when you started to work for UNRWA and what led you to engage with UNRWA and support Palestine refugees in Lebanon.
So hello, Mara, again. Let me start by telling you that I always call myself a veteran of UNRWA. I started in 1997 and I came to UNRWA by chance. By pure coincidence, I wanted to have this, UN experience, and I applied for the job as an expert in communications and public information. And then when I started working for this agency, I started slowly to become, more and more passionate about what I do. I learned how valuable, the work of UNRWA at the service of the Palestinian refugees is. And I got completely sucked into this purely humanitarian organization, and it just became part of my life since then. So I strongly believe that we have to serve this humanitarian cause with everything that we can, and we should not lose hope at all.
Thank you, Huda, and thank you for all your years of service. Wow, 1997. So we're coming up on actually 25 years of service. Is that right? Mabruk.
It
That's
is.
amazing. Wow. What a commitment. It's so motivating for us to hear about many folks at UNRWA who've worked for so many years, because again, the work is so needed and also so valuable to many folks. So Huda, let's just start right away with the really difficult conditions that we've been hearing about here at UNRWA USA, and many of those in the US have been hearing about. We talked about the rampant inflation, the devaluation of the currency, the increase in food prices, which are astronomical. Maybe you can give us, especially those in the US who may not have a detailed understanding of the situation on the ground, what life is like, especially in those camps where Palestine refugees live.
I can quickly say that it has never, ever in all my years of service in UNRWA been so hard. It's the situation is indescribable nowadays. Poverty is universal. 93% is the poverty rate today. It was 86% in May. It was 73% in January of this year. So month after month, day after day, hour after hour, the situation is getting worse and worse. Families cannot make ends meet. The inflation is skyrocketing. They cannot afford the basic. They cannot even afford food. The families are simply lost in despair, frustration. I mean, I cannot describe enough how bad the situation is. I have been, as I said, at the service of this agency for long years now. I have never ever in my all years of experience seen and witnessed what we are witnessing nowadays. The families tell you stories that are simply unbearable. Just imagine, what is it like to have a family where you cannot even afford a bottle of cooking gas to cook a meal for your family. You cannot afford powder milk for your kids. Little kids as young as a year or two are deprived of milk. They are giving them regular food because they cannot afford milk. They cannot afford cooking gas. They cannot afford anything. Parents are skipping meals in order to save a meal for their kids, and it's the food insecurity. It's malnutrition. It's everything. It has never been that bad.
Wow, this is just this is really difficult to hear, and certainly I've read recently many reports stating just how bad it is, but hearing from you yourself on the ground just reinforces that this is a crisis like folks I've not seen in Lebanon, certainly not in your lifetime. Just on the food crisis, I had understood, and tell me if this is correct, that the increase in the prices of basic goods has skyrocketed to the point where I'm understanding that just to buy a bag of bread locally would take somebody working at minimum wage, which is what most Palestine refugees work at because there are very few jobs open to them. It would take them essentially more than 2 days of work to be able to buy a bag of bread, and actually a week and a half of work, 60 hours of work, to be able to afford 2 kilos. And for those 1 kilo for those in the US, 2 pounds of meat for their family, and over 80 hours of work to provide the basic fuel needed, as you said, for heat and cooking. It is just impossible for us sitting here in the US to imagine what that life is like. Unbearable.
Yeah. It is unfathomable. I mean, I cannot describe it enough. For those who are lucky and who do find some work to do, it would take them as long as you've described to put food on the table. But just imagine that even those who were lucky enough to have casual work here and there are not working anymore. Unemployment is skyrocketing, not only for the Palestinians, but for the Lebanese. The whole country is falling apart. It's everything is just melting down, and maybe the most vulnerable of all are the Palestinian refugees, who have already been struggling even before the crisis. You get to see parents who cannot even, as I said, put bread on the table. They are so desperate that you hear stories of young fathers who would tell you, I prefer to take my family and gamble and take them in the sea, in a perilous journey, even if they lose their life, even if all of us lose our lives, because this is not life in dignity anymore. It is, this level of despair. Just to tell you a story, for example, I was once in a camp, and the mother who was describing how difficult the situation was. Her kids dropped out of school because they had to help the father, who collects plastic for recycling, because this is the only thing that he could find as a work. And it would take them 2 or 3 days of collection of plastic and recyclable materials, only to bring a kilo or 2 of rice. They have forgotten what meat tastes like. They've forgotten what chicken tastes like. They haven't had chicken or meat for months and months. Maybe last time they had it was, I don't know, if someone donated some meat on the Adha, for example, nothing else. And yet she told me that, my husband bought some rice and lentils, but I don't have cooking gas. And then the following week, she sent me a message with someone from the camp telling me that she found the solution. And I said, what is the solution? And she said the solution is that she was rejoicing to the fact that she had a perfect match of a kidney, and she's going to sell one of her kidneys.
Oh my
Obviously, I was completely, devastated by the news. We intervened, we sent someone, we tried to, of course, dissuade her. But it is this level of despair and poverty.
Wow.
We're seeing kids coming to school without breakfast. To give you an example, they come to school, they are dozing off, they're tired, they cannot concentrate, they're coming without breakfast at school. So how can you expect of a little kid who's 8 or 9 to sit and concentrate for 8 hours at school?
Yeah, what you're saying just brings it home so much, and it's just very hard to hear, and of course, that much harder to live that reality. There's a quote we saw recently from UNRWA. It's from Abir Shaban, a 45-year-old Palestine refugee living with her children and her husband in Badawi camp in North Lebanon. And she says, my husband is unemployed. It has become extremely difficult to buy most food items because prices have skyrocketed. We are really struggling. We skip some meals. Many times I wait for my children to eat first, and then I eat what is left. My children ask for more, and I don't know what to answer them and how I can get them what they want. This is very difficult for me. As a mom, this really resonated with me. I would feed my children well before me, and this is happening. And even the children are not getting the food, as you say, to function in school. It's just unimaginable. And then yet people are then taking this perilous journey. They're attempting to cross the Mediterranean. And I understand that one of these, really dangerous trips ended up in the death of many Palestine refugees who were drowned. Is that correct? And we don't even know how many, because the bodies have not been located.
Yeah, I'll tell you how many. There were 24 Palestinian refugees on board of this boat that had more than 100 people on it. 24 of them were Palestinians. 13 or 14 bodies were recovered, and 9 bodies are still missing. And I met the other day 2 mothers, actually a mother and a grandmother, here in the office. They were telling us their story, and I was at loss of words. There was nothing I could tell them. The mother told me, my son is 25, and he told me, please, mom, do not hold me back. Do not tell me to stay here. I'm not going to ruin my future. I'm gambling. I either make it to the other side and live in dignity, or, it's a slow death anyways. So he drowned. They didn't find his body. The other grandmother, she had a son and his son. So the son took the grandson, who was only 6 or 7. He's in one of our schools. and they went on the boat. They found the body of the grandson, and they did not find the body of the son. And she came here and she was crying, and she told me, I cannot even feel, I cannot even mourn my son. I just want to see the body. If you bring me the body, at least I can, bury the body and then see and decide what to do with my grief. I buried my grandson, but I could not bury my son. And we have been liaising with ICRC, with other parties, to try and, understand what is it that can be done for the missing bodies. Very little, unfortunately. I mean, nothing. She told me I brought up my kids on my own. I was alone. She's a mother of 4 orphans. She brought them up alone. She used to cut parsley and sell them at the market for tabbouleh, the famous tabbouleh. And then this is how she brought up her kids. So the son, who got married and then divorced, of course, because of family problems, decided to take his son, the little boy, and go by sea. She prayed him, she begged him, she told me, and he wouldn't listen. He told her, do not ask me to stay here. I'm not going to bring up my son the way you did to bring me up with my brothers and sisters. Oh. And he's gone. Just imagine, I just want the public to imagine the level of despair that would push those people to throw themselves in the sea, knowing that there's more than 50% chance that they won't make it to the other side. We went from UNRWA officials to pay condolences in Nahr al-Bared 2 days later, and 3 days later, another boat took off from Tripoli coast, and a third boat took off, and a fifth boat took off. This means that people are not giving up on, as I said, gambling with their lives.
Oh. Well, you have described it better than anybody could right now, just how difficult life is. And again, it's because the prices are so high, people cannot afford basic food for their family, the fuel to heat their houses, to cook. And let me say that there is something we can do here in the United States. We can provide support to these suffering populations. And please, if I can ask anyone listening right now, one is to forward this live video feed to everyone you know, to help them become aware of what's going on in Lebanon, and particularly the vulnerable populations in Lebanon, like Palestine refugees. And please, you can go to UNRWAusa.org and select donate, and you can contribute to UNRWA's life-saving support in Lebanon. And what UNRWA is doing, and Huda will tell us more about this, is providing cash assistance, direct cash assistance to refugees, to Palestine refugees in Lebanon, to help them be able to afford food and medicine and all those essential goods that are needed for life. And hopefully to prevent many more of them for losing their lives on the Mediterranean Sea, trying to escape really what is a horrific situation. Again, please go to UNRWAusa.org and press donate, and please be a lifeline for Palestine this holiday season, and particularly to those suffering in Lebanon. In honor of Giving Tuesday and the International Day of Solidarity, we will provide an additional, actually, it's really from generous donors of ours who will provide an additional $10 for every donation made over the next 24 hours. So please, we ask you to donate now. Thank you so much. So speaking of what UNRWA does for these vulnerable populations, can you tell us more about UNRWA services in the refugee camps? Talk to us about the cash assistance program. Talk to us about the needs in terms of how far that program is going and what it's not able to reach yet. We'd love to hear these details from you, Huda.
UNRWA is, in 2 words, for the Palestinians in Lebanon, UNRWA is the lifeline. Without UNRWA, they have nowhere to go. UNRWA is providing almost state-like services for a population that has nowhere else to go. As I said, poverty is universal, 93%, so no one is left out of poverty. Unemployment is everywhere. They don't have anywhere to go. They even tell you, the way I hear it from them directly, they tell you, we are stranded in Lebanon. We are stuck. We cannot go back to our homeland. We cannot stay in Lebanon and make a living. We cannot emigrate. UNRWA does not have enough resources to cater for our needs. What is it that you expect us to do? And To this, I have no answer, unfortunately. What UNRWA is doing and should continue to do is to provide services and to improve on the quality of our services. We are providing here educational services for 39,000 Palestinian refugee students from Lebanon and from Syria, because in addition to the Palestinian refugees from Lebanon, we have about 30,000 plus Palestinian refugees from Syria who fall also under UNRWA's mandate in Lebanon. So we're providing educational services to 39,000 plus refugees who, at least without UNRWA schools, would have never been able to pursue any kind of education whatsoever, because they cannot afford to pay any tuition fees. Yet, even for these refugees, this year, they are not able to pay any transportation cost to come to our schools. Sometimes we see children dropping out because their parents cannot afford to even send them to school. And as I said before, even nutrition is an issue, where many of our students come to our schools sometimes without breakfast, and the numbers are alarming. On the health side, we have 27 health centers in Lebanon, inside and outside camps. We provide primary health care. We're doing well on this, where we provide free of charge medication, primary consultations. We have basic laboratory services and x-ray, etc. But it's never enough, because there are some medications that are very, very expensive, example, cancer medications, that are not available in our pharmacies. So they will have to buy them on the local market. And on the local market, you can just imagine the cost of the prices now, with the hike that has happened once the government lifted its subsidies on the medications. They simply cannot afford medication. I personally met a young man, a father, who said that I decided to forego cancer treatment because I'm afraid that if I start the treatment, I will never be able to pay my share of the treatment after UNRWA has given me, the share that they would be able to cover as an agency. I will not be able to cover my share. And if I do not cover my share, I may need to contract debts. And then if I die, what happens to my family? So I prefer to die without debts than dying, leaving them with debts. And I can go on and on. Wasima, a young mother of 3, she's only 32. She told us, I don't know, I don't even have the luxury to decide to die. Can you imagine such a statement? She said, I have to make it. I have to be strong for my kids. Yet UNRWA is not covering 100% her hospital bill, 100% her medication, because we don't have enough funds to cover 100%. So this is on the education, on the health level. Hospitalization for very difficult, extremely costly hospital, interventions are not covered by UNRWA in full. Sometimes we cover 30%, 40%, 60%, depending on the type of the surgery. But it's for the costly surgery, it's never in full. And this is where refugees have to go to welfare associations. They literally have to beg to find the remaining balance to pay their bills. Sometimes they don't find the balance, and you can imagine what happens next. Now, on the relief and social services level, we in UNRWA Lebanon, we have a category of people under the social safety net program, and their number is 61,000 Palestinian refugees out of a total of about 200,000. So if you do the quick calculations, it's about, let's say, 25%, not more than 30% of a group of people who are benefiting from some cash assistance under our regular programs, while poverty is 93%. So by definition, we have a gap of around 60% in our intervention. In order to fill this gap, what we have been doing so far is collecting funds under our emergency appeals to provide emergency cash assistance to different categories of people: children aged between 0 and 18, chronically ill patients, the elderly, and persons with disabilities, in addition to the Palestinian refugees from Syria and the social safety net beneficiaries. It's good if you look at it in the sense that we have been able to make a difference in their life a little bit, but it's not enough. We have given them this year, for example, 3 rounds of assistance. And when I say assistance, it's $50 per person. So can you imagine what in 3 or 4 months, what is it that you can do with $50 when the rent of a place is $200 or $150? When if you want to buy a gallon of gas oil is $20, if you have to commute, and if you want fuel for heating, you have to pay hundreds and hundreds of dollars every month. There's no electricity, so we buy electricity in Lebanon. We have subscriptions in power generators, and if you don't have a subscription, you cannot even have a bulb, and if you don't have light at your house, you don't even have a fridge or a heater. So, and many people decided to cut their subscription because they cannot afford. So UNRWA is trying to do its best in terms of standing by the refugees, providing cash, providing emergency medical care, but this is way beyond what is needed. The needs are great, are huge. You cannot imagine. I mean, we basically, if we want to really make a difference, we have to give them cash assistance regularly on a monthly basis. That was the plan when we issued an emergency appeal on the 19th of January of this year, but the emergency appeal was only 30% funded. So we had to launch another very urgent flash appeal in October just to cover the needs of the months of November and December.
Wow. So I'm hoping that those listening can really understand what is going on here. We have so many wonderful supporters in the U.S., so many supporters who come through time and time again, especially at this time of year after around Thanksgiving and toward the holiday season here. We're talking about, as Huda said, a third of roughly 25% to a third of the 200,000 Palestine refugees that UNRWA is serving are receiving cash assistance. That's only $50 3 different times. It barely covers their needs, and that doesn't account for the now 93% of Palestine refugees who are living at or under the poverty level. So the $50 can support a family for a short time. It's not a lot here, and we hope anybody who can contribute this amount can do so now. And again, generous donors of UNRWA USA will support that contribution and add another $10 onto it. So we know the need is huge right now, and that is why this need in Lebanon is a core focus of our end of year campaign at UNRWA USA. So we appreciate all the support that folks can contribute. So thank you so much, Huda, for talking about all the programs that UNRWA, the essential programs UNRWA provides for Palestine refugees in Lebanon. And now for a moment, if we can shift focus to just recognizing that today is the International Day of Solidarity with the Palestinian people. And maybe you can tell me, Huda, what does this day mean to you? And what are the ways those of us in the United States can best show our support on this day for Palestinians?
I have mixed feelings on this day. You know, today it was also a strike in most of the camps. It was a general strike. They wanted to show it their way, to tell the whole world that things are not okay. It's not business as usual. That it's not just one other year that passes by. This year is very different. Palestinians are, as I said, just on the edge of the abyss, and we really need to act, and we need to act now. Having been around, as I said, for years and years and years, it gives me this feeling of, you know, once again, it's a reminder that 74 years after the establishment of UNRWA, the solution has not been found yet. A political solution is 74 years overdue. And I believe that the whole world, the international community, those who are in the political seats, the decision makers, they just have to find a solution to the humanitarian plight of the Palestinian refugees after this, you know, huge number of years and all this suffering. I mean, for me, it's just, you know, enough. It's just too much. In Lebanon, they have nothing else to lose anymore.
Wow. Wow, I couldn't agree more. 74 years is way longer than UNRWA meant to be around, because there was supposed to be a just and durable political solution, and as you said, there haven't been. But really, it should be the focus of political leaders now. And unfortunately, all too often, it's not been the focus. People are just letting all of these refugees, human beings, civilians suffer, and we do hope that that will end, and that intelligent and thoughtful people will come forward and find a political way forward. Of course, that's outside of the scope of UNRWA, but this kind of suffering can't go on. It's just unbearable and unimaginable. It's hard to even realize on our side in the United States what that life could be like. So I would like to ask you, you'd mentioned the Syrian refugees, the Palestine refugees from Syria. Maybe tell us a little bit more about that population, when that population arrived and where they're living, and what kind of additional strains serving the Palestine refugees from Syria put on UNRWA in the camps.
Yeah, the Palestinian refugees from Syria are twice refugees, so to say, if not more. You know, they have been refugees from Palestine to Syria, and then second time refugees or displaced from Syria into Lebanon. And most of them say that we cannot return to Syria. They are unable to continue to live here in dignity. And as I said, which is also valid for them, as I said, for the Palestinian refugees from Lebanon, they again cannot leave the country. They would love to just go elsewhere, seek a life in dignity, but they can't. They cannot live here. They cannot emigrate. They cannot return to Syria nor to Palestine, and they only have UNRWA to go to. They protest. We understand this. They stage strikes, sit-ins. They come. They put tents outside the office. They, put their demands on the table. We are unable to do more than what we are doing. They are a category that is even provided with more services than the Palestinian refugees from Lebanon. They get monthly payments. Even Palestinian refugees from Lebanon are saying, at least they are getting monthly payments. We are not. Imagine it's even, like there are levels of poverty and need. Many of them, they say that we need this additional support because we don't have homes here. We don't have jobs. We have to rent. The rent is very, very high. Even inside the camps, you may not imagine this, but even the cost of rent and the cost of life inside the camps is really very, very expensive. The camps of Beirut are, if you want, as almost as expensive as some neighborhoods of Beirut. Wow. Which again, Beirut is as expensive as Paris, if you want to put things in perspective. So they are assisted, as I said, with monthly cash assistance, but again, it's not enough. They demand more. They are renting, they are attending our schools. The fact that there's an additional number of refugees living in already overcrowded camps has put some additional strain on our infrastructure, on the water supply networks, on the sewage system, on garbage collection, environmental health, and now, to add to all the misery and to all the struggle of Palestinian refugees, we're struggling in Lebanon with a cholera outbreak.
Oh my!
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I don't know to what extent people realize, but in Lebanon, there's cholera now. So we have been doing a lot of efforts to increase our environmental health interventions, garbage collection, water chlorination, pumping more water, making sure that the water wells are all clean, chlorinated, taking care of anyone who's ill, making sure that we have all the necessary oral rehydration fluids in the clinics and the necessary drugs and medications. And this is only the tip of the iceberg. So yes, it is an additional strain, if we want to put it this way. And
let me ask you, you had mentioned that the prices for rent, let's say, in the refugee camps are as high as some of the, nicest neighborhoods in Beirut, which are, I visited both places myself, but maybe you can help are the people tuning in right now to understand actually what does a camp look like? Because we're talking about very expensive, but the conditions, I think it's probably hard for folks to imagine. Can you describe the density, the population density, the what the infrastructure looks like? Help people in the U.S. understand what a refugee camp looks like in Lebanon.
Oh yes, sure. I can take you in a virtual tour in Burj Barajne camp, for example, which is the largest camp in Beirut area. Burj Barajne has very narrow alleys. Even the largest avenue, quote unquote, of Burj Barajne is a place where only one car would go at a time. You know, the two cars cannot meet in the main road of Burj Barajne, and this is on the main road of Burj Barajne. If you enter the narrow alleys, it's only people have to line one after the other just to pass in the narrow alleys of Burj Barajne. The other day, I had a delegation to take out to the camps, and it was rainy. And I was deadly worried because in Burj Barajne, there are wires of electricity that just hang up above the heads of the people. We have had so far in the recent years 87 cases of electrocution. 87 people lost their lives electrocuted in Burj Barajne camp only because the wires of electricity and the water pipes and the telephone lines and everything is just hanging on above the heads of the people. So myself, who's only 1.60 meters, I always find myself very lucky to be able to walk in the camps without touching the wires, but the tall ones, they suffer. You don't even dare to carry an umbrella in Burj Barajne camp. You prefer to get soaking wet and not carry an umbrella, because if the umbrella touches the electrical wire, you're dead. We have had cases of children, very young children, who got electrocuted because they touched the wall. The wall was wet, full of water. They put their hands on the wall, they got electrocuted. And the houses are humid, they are small, they lack ventilation, they lack daylight. In Burj Al Barajne alone, we have about 1,000 or around 1,800, between 800 and 1,000 shelters in need of urgent rehabilitation, because they are, some of them, on the brink of collapse. And we were only able to do 120. So this is to give you an idea about the type of intervention. And the 120 shelters that we were able to do were thanks to a project funding. This doesn't come out of the program budget of the general fund of UNRWA. We wait for a certain earmarked project funding in order to be able to act and do a little bit of repairs here and there. These are places that have where we have had a chaotic expansion, because the camps, of course, cannot expand horizontally. So people started to just pile up rooms on top of each other. The original house was 1 story, and because the son wanted to get married, so he would put a story on top, and then another story on top, and another story on top, without any proper foundation, without infrastructure. And this is all very, very hazardous. Once I met someone in the camp in Burj Barajne, and they were telling me, because Lebanon is on this earthquake line, as historically, it's known that Lebanon, and especially Beirut, was buried 7 times because of earthquakes. So we know that we are on this earthquake line. And they said that we just hope and pray that if there's an earthquake, that it happens during the day when people are out of their homes, because if it happens during the night, Burj Barajne and other camps would collapse.
Oh, wow. This is just so hard to hear. And let me just take this moment to ask you, what can we do here? What can Americans do, those in the U.S., whether our government or our people, to better support refugees and UNRWA's work? Tell us how we can be of service.
Well, a lot can be done. Let's start with the support to the Palestinian refugees, to their rights, to their humanitarian needs. This is in terms of, let's say, moral support and advocacy and standing by their rights. The second thing, and here I just have to be so thankful and grateful to the government of the United States that again came back and resumed their funding to UNRWA, because when under the Trump administration UNRWA was defunded, We were wondering every single month whether we're going to make it to the following month. We were not sure whether we were able to end the school year. We were not sure whether the following month we would be present because, we were not able to pay salaries. And it when the US resumed its funding, it for us, this is vital. The US now is the top donor to UNRWA in all its fields of operations. And as I say today, we cannot survive without this vital funding. So we cannot but be thankful and grateful for this, governmental support. Of course, we would hope and wish for it to be made sustainable, predictable, more and more funding coming our way until there's a final solution to the plight of the Palestinian refugees. Because as I said, they only have UNRWA to go to, especially in Lebanon. On an individual basis, of course, Americans also can help with their generosity, with individual donations, and every penny counts.
Thank you, Huda. Thank you. I hope that every person sitting in what will be our new Congress in 2023 will hear your message and will continue to support the needed funding for UNRWA. The U.S. being the #1 donor, approximately $360 million. Without the U.S., UNRWA cannot serve the vast needs of Palestinian refugees in Lebanon, let alone across the 5 field sites where UNRWA works. So we ask our community, in addition to all of the generous support that you provide, to also be on the lookout for congressional action alerts that we send out. And we send these out from time to time, encouraging all of you, our supporters, to contact your members of Congress and let them know that you want your tax dollars to support UNRWA's essential humanitarian work for Palestine refugees, the kind of support that will help keep Palestine refugees alive in Lebanon today. Letters, emails, and tweets are drafted and ready for you to go, and you usually just need to add your name. It takes less than a minute, but it has a tremendous impact on UNRWA's work in the region. And we will tell you now that in 2023, we're going to need your support more than ever with the new Congress. So be on the lookout for advocacy alerts from UNRWA USA and for action alerts from UNRWA USA. And finally, Huda, this conversation has been so difficult, I'm sure, for you to even recount, for us to listen to. Learning about these hardships has been heartbreaking. And at the same time, I'm sure all those who are listening will be inspired to act, both in terms of their support on a monetary basis and also their political support. I do want to end this episode, however, on a hopeful note. Huda, can you tell us what hope you see in Lebanon and what hope you see for Palestine refugees? Well, we may have lost Huda. She may have frozen at the thinking about hope in this dire situation. Oh, she's back. Huda, please. Did you hear my question?
I left you at the word hope, which is an essential word.
Please, we can have you comment on what hope we can find under these difficult, harrowing conditions.
Yes, I mean, I don't think that we can afford to lose hope. There's always hope. There's a strong hope, and I refuse to lose hope. And so do my other colleagues in UNRWA. We're all committed. We cannot leave the Palestinian refugees to, most of my colleagues are Palestinians themselves. So we just cannot afford to lose hope. We are, as I said, the lifeline for Palestinian refugees, and we will remain here and present and committed until a final solution is found to their plight. I always feel, optimistic, and I feel this hope again every single time I look in the eyes of our youth, of our students, those who are pursuing their education in UNRWA schools. And there are, tens and tens of examples of, successful students who are brilliant now everywhere in the world and who studied in UNRWA schools. Basil Ajawi is one of them. He's one of our students from Tir, Sur, down in the south, and who's now a Harvard student. He went to Harvard all the way from here So because he received a very strong education in UNRWA schools. There is Yafa, who is a very known architect in Italy. There is Salam, a very known surgeon himself, and 4 of his brothers are surgeons in Germany, and he's an orthopedic surgeon. And he contacted me this summer and he said, I want to come back to Lebanon and pay back and perform surgeries free of charge to the Palestinian population. So please help me and guide me. These are only some examples of the brilliant students who made it all the way. These are people who are attached to the education. They want to build a better future. So I believe that it is everyone's responsibility to help them achieve a better future. And this is where we get the hope from. Once I asked someone in the camp and I said, how can you still smile? You enter a house that has nothing right now. And then they offer you coffee and they say, Alhamdulillah, and everything is okay. And they greet you and they want you to sit and have juice and coffee. And then I said, what do you call that? Where do you get your strength from? And someone told me, this is faith. So in this part of the world, we call it faith. In America, they may call it resilience in the West. But whether we call it resilience or faith, I think we should all build in the hope.
Huda, your testimony has been inspirational. And I just want to thank you so much for sharing your stories, for sharing what you've witnessed yourself in the camps, for all of your important work, and for helping to educate us here in the US on the conditions, on the dire conditions of Palestine refugees in Lebanon. On behalf of our entire UNRWA USA team, I know who are all listening right now, we so appreciate the time you took to tell us about conditions on the ground and how our listeners can better support UNRWA's work in the region. And I would like, on this note, to remind all those watching to keep your eye on Palestine and its refugees and continue to show your solidarity with Palestine refugees by supporting organizations like UNRWA USA and all those supporting Palestine refugees in the region. You can make a donation right now at unrwausa.org. Click on donate, and please, right now, you can be a lifeline for Palestine. Your contribution today will be partially matched by our generous community, and your support will go to help those suffering in Lebanon and Gaza, many of the stories of which you've heard about today. You can also be on the lookout for our advocacy alerts, which we will be sending, and we'd like you to help us ensure that the U.S. continues to fund UNRWA's work by contacting your members of Congress. Again, visit unrwausa.org to learn more. And finally, as a reminder, please follow us on social media at UNRWA USA to stay up to date with our latest. And please stay tuned on a happier note for our virtual Christmas foodie event, My Big Fat Palestinian Christmas, which will be next Wednesday, December 7th at 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. So thank you, Huda, again. Thank you so much for your inspirational words, for all of your energy that you bring to those in need. And we hope you have a happy and healthy week ahead. And I tell you now, we will be seeing you in Lebanon shortly, because we need to be on the ground sharing, understanding this need ourselves and sharing it with our listeners. So and Shufik, very soon be Lebanon. Thank you so much, Huda.
Sure, most welcome. Ahlan wa sahlan. Looking forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear. Thanks to all those listening as well.